Hey, everybody. Welcome back, I guess. This is Dustin's Vinyl. I think I was doing a regular show on Instagram called Vinyl DC, and it was where I pulled vinyl records and I talked about it and kind of shared experiences from concerts to like first albums that I had and things like that. And this is, we're doing an upgrade show. This is a new show. I have a featured co host. I have a tech guy. Like it's going to be exciting because very excited about the tech guy for sure. Because I think the last show I did, every time I would do my font, it would just be a little different size every time because I know nothing about that stuff. So very excited. Adam Holtz is going to be our producer, and we're going to have a good time. I'm going to wait on telling you who our secret co-host is. But first, we're going to start out with the random pull, is which I like to do on my show, where I just don't know what I'm pulling, and we kind of like, maybe it's rigged. Who really knows? But so we're going to pull the first album here it's in the comedy section. This is very exciting. This is Dice first album, produced by Rick Rubin. If you're a fan of stand-up comedy, you have to love Andrew Dice Clay. This is when comedy was fun. This is when you can actually say things and you could be funny and nobody got weird about it. And this is a great album. I believe, let's see, it was recorded, I think, a couple different places. And it's funny because this week, Dangerfields, who is a comedy club in Manhattan, and it always reminds me of Andrew Dice Clay because he's got his start there. He's discovered on one of the Young Comedian specials. And so, it's really fitting that I would pull Dice. And I love Dice. And this is the first album. And Rick Rubin, the one that produced, so much hip hop and Beastie Boys and The Cult and so many cool albums. And the fact that he kind of ventured into doing something like this is really amazing. So get this album if you can. Get you some Dice, because Dice is it's the way comedy should be. It's very uncensored. Even this was the big label at the time. It's Andrew Dice Clay, warning, this album is offensive. Like, that's all it said on it. And every kid in the world wanted to listen to this album. And this is really cool stuff. So get you some, just a couple of the tracks. What If the Chicken Gets Pregnant, which is quality, and a lot of jokes about sex, and you're gonna love it. And that's my album of pull of the day. So I'm gonna bring in my co-host. I'm very excited. This is a guy I've known in the stand-up comedy world for many years. I've spent a lot of car rides with him, driving to firehouses and elk lodges. What is an elk lodge, really? Is it Illuminati for poor people? So we talked a lot, and so once in a while you meet people that kind of you connect to through music. And he's a guy that is really kind of all over the place with his music taste, and that's what I like about him. And he's actually worked security on the road with a lot of different bands, from the Rolling Stones to a lot of others he'll tell you about. He had his own record store right out of high school, and just really a guy that I can connect to, because there's we're kind of close to the same age, and in comedy, it's like, there's very few of us left. So we get to connect and hang out and be older dudes who love music. And I just want to bring a very funny guy. His tons of credits, MSG, and played all over the world. Please make some noise for in the home studio, Mr. Jeffrey Paul, everybody.
Hey,
how's that?
I'm excited to be doing this with you, man. This is good. Yeah. We would drive and just like start talking music, and we were all over the place. But the thing is, when you talk music, it doesn't make a difference who you're talking to. You're always going to learn something from different people. And when you used to do this on Facebook and Instagram, you would always pull out these things. And, I think like I know a lot, but man, you would like turn me on to stuff like, haven't even thought about that or didn't know about it. So I thought it was kind of like an interesting little thing you did there. And
thanks, man. I appreciate it. And you reached out and you wanted to kind of like, make it a little bigger. And I'm all about it. I'm all about going big. So you're going to make me famous off of this. And I'm very excited.
Yeah. And I like what you pulled out there. I love that.
Dice, huh? You seem like a Dice fan.
Really? From Brooklyn? No, get out of here. That's all I listened to. Holy shit. Like, I remember when that came out, I had that on cassette. So I would have like remember like you had the Walkmans, and it was the cassette Walkman?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. Yes, I had that. I had the one that Gary Goldman used to talk about with like the mega bass, the yellow one. Remember the yellow one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that one, and that was cool because it was like for if you're an athlete, you wore that. So if I went running or anything, people listen to music. I listen to Dice all the time.
Nice.
Holy shit, did I love this album?
Yeah, a lot of people, he had a lot of controversy and whatnot. And, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little more of a Kinnison fan. And I felt like at one time it was kind of like you had to choose because they had this beef. I remember.
How real is that rivalry?
It was pretty real. There's how it is when comics you do something similar to the other person's doing. We're weird, insecure artists. And I think that's really what it was. And they were such big comics at the time. I mean, they both kind of blew up at the same time. But I don't think they liked each other. I know guys that knew both of them, and they said it was pretty real. I mean, part of this stuff is, a beef will give you press. So I think part of it could have been some of that, but I don't think they liked each other very much. But
okay.
But this is a cool album. My favorite Dice album is When the Laughter Died. That was recorded actually at Dangerfields, all of it, and that was like a bunch of tourists that were in there, and he kind of dropped in and just did his final act, and it didn't go well. And it's
one take. One take.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I have a lot of comedy albums, and I think it's cool that I get to share these with you guys. So I'm very happy to have you on the show, man. We're gonna have a good time.
What was the first comedy album do you remember listening to?
My first comedy album, it might have been Cheech and Chong. I think my
Sister Mary Elephant.
Maybe, yeah. What was that? That wasn't Up in Smoke. That was later, right?
That was the
first one.
Yeah, later. Sister Mary Elephant came first.
That's the first one. Okay.
Yeah, that's 70s. I remember as a little kid.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the album. I just remember my mother smoked a lot of weed, so she had all the Cheech and Chong albums. That might have been my first introduction to comedy on an album, was probably through Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, those were like recorded bits. I remember being with my friends. I remember like we played baseball in the streets. This is something like out of like a Bronx Tale. We would hang out, play baseball on the street, and when we would be hanging out in between, we would put on Richard Pryor Live at the Sunset Strip. That was the first comedy I've ever heard, stand-up comedy. That was cursing.
All that stuff. Funny. I think just everything 70s was amazing. It's kind of hard to go wrong with like early music and then early comedy in the 70s. It's all really good stuff. A lot of experimental, just soulful stuff. So,
tell you what's his name? Kennison. He's isn't he a Texas guy?
He's actually from the same place Richard Pryor's from, Peoria, Illinois, and he started in Texas. He moved to Houston, and then they started kind of the Comedy Outlaws, and it was him and Bill Hicks and Ron Schott.
Mitch Walters, one of those guys.
Who?
Mitch Walters.
Man, I don't think so. It's another guy. I forget his name. Mark Riccadonna, a comedian friend of ours, always talks about him. I'll think of his name later. That's the downside of not being in your 20s. You just forget the names all the time.
we got a lot of history.
We will edit for Google during the show. So this is the featured album segment where Jeffrey Paul finds an album that's kind of, that he wants to feature because it's affected, the music of our lives. And what is your featured album of the day?
All right. So I think the album that we're going to go over and, because of the timing is Van Halen 1.
I got it right here.
Eddie Van Halen. Put it the right way. There you go. All right. Let's keep it up there and let's talk a little bit about it. This is Van Halen's debut album. It's released in 1978. The album sold over 10 million copies in the United States alone, which gave it diamond certification. Here's something, Dustin.
Yes.
Who discovered Van Halen? Do you know?
Who discovered Van Halen?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I would say, I don't know. Well, they were early kind of prodigies because they were pianists, the two of them, him and Alex. So I don't know. Like you don't ask me questions. Just like, this is, then you make me look like I don't know shit. Like,
well, that's a matter of point of view. It makes me look like I know shit.
Come on, just make me look good, Jeff. What are you doing?
Oh, listen,
discovered Van Halen. Go ahead.
You already got the fucking set, okay?
I know they opened for somebody.
Slab behind me.
For somebody. Was the Rolling Stones? They opened
no, it was actually Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons. That's right.
Yes,
right.
He financed their demo, and at one point, Eddie was getting so frustrated with music. Like, he's getting so frustrated. He's in his very early 20s. He's like, "Fuck this! I want to become part of Kiss. I'll become the guitar player in Kiss." And Gene said, "Look, man, you're just way too good. To do. You need to have your own voice. Do your own thing." So they made their name. In fact, that album cover that you're showing, those pictures were taken at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Oh, nice.
Where Van Halen was a regular staple in the club scene, and everybody kind of knew them. And Gene financed the demos, and Kiss goes on tour. Van Halen keeps playing clubs, and they're blowing up. And one of the big time producers, Ted Templeman, winds up taking him on, and he produced Van Morrison and Aerosmith and Clapton, and they bring him in the studio. This album winds up taking only 3 weeks to record at a cost of $40,000. And basically,
That's nothing.
The thing that you keep hearing about it is they just wanted to take their live set and put it on record. So there's very little overdubbing on this album. I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 songs where they actually overdub. There's a couple of things that we'll get into where it's their studio tricks, but otherwise this was like, if you saw them at the Whiskey, this is what was put on vinyl. When the album is released, this is interesting too, because you just see the history of music as it evolves. Is the album is released and they're going on tour, and the first real tour they go on is it's a 3-band tour. The headliner is Journey. The middle group is Montrose. I'm going to have to ask you another question here. Who's the lead singer in Montrose?
You're going to have to tell me, bro.
Sammy Hagar.
This. There you go. Sammy Hagar.
Okay. Yeah. And then the first group on was Van Halen. And the quote was Greg Raleigh, who was the leader, and he kind of took over, did some of the singing with Perry, and he's the lead singer before Perry and keyboard player. He was like, "Man, I'm glad we didn't have to follow Van Halen. Like Montrose had to do that every night."
Sure.
Sabbath, they go later on. Van Halen goes on tour. This is 78. They go on tour with Black Sabbath. I actually saw them on their first tour. I was a little kid. God. One of the first concerts I ever went to.
Really? That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So the album comes out, and it comes out to mixed reviews. Rolling Stone, really, they didn't like it. Okay. It wasn't for them. Okay, it wasn't
like Led Zeppelin either. So
fucking bro. Okay,
they missed a few. Here and there.
That's a big miss, though, man. That's a big fucking miss. The Village Voice, also, they called them a bar band. It's a bar band. You know who liked them? Kerrang! This English magazine, which I used to read, when I was a kid here. So what we'll do on this segment is like we're gonna break it down track by track, and the first track I want to start.
Well, can I add something as well? It's fun. It was, going into kind of a wormhole of Van Halen and kind of like getting to know a little bit of the history and kind of, how these, this amazing group of people, kind of just assembled this great band. And, I was listening to a few things and, just Eddie Van Halen just kind of being him, and Alex. I mean, I feel like Alex doesn't get a lot of props for how good a drummer he is, and an amazing musician, and really was kind of the lead on a lot of stuff with Eddie, and kind of, they really collaborated a lot. And, I don't know if a lot of people know they were pianists, when they were a kid, and the father was a clarinet player and all this stuff. And, it's interesting to just kind of watch the thing. And one thing I like about Eddie was kind of this mad scientist of kind of like, creating his own sound literally by ripping guitars to pieces and adding like a fret here and adding necks and things. And so that sound from this first album is, kind of the creation of Eddie's Frankenstein guitar. He took a Les Paul thing and just...
It was called a Frankencaster.
Yeah. And just put this thing together that sound like it. That's the thing too, is when you hear this music, I'm excited to hear your rundown on the album, is it's just, you hadn't heard that type of guitar sound before, and that's what's great about it. There's I think there's two people I could say that about. One of them, it would be Jimi Hendrix for sure, and
Perfect.
Then Eddie Van Halen would be the second person.
100%.
Where it's just like you just never heard that type of sound.
Exactly.
And so it's just really interesting.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, I would say in our lifetime, probably the two most influential. That's not talking right. Yeah, but the two biggest fucking guitar players we've ever seen. Okay,
somebody's from Staten Island.
Can we go back to talking about Dice?
Hey, this guy over here.
This girl sucking my dick. Yeah.
Hey, so I'm fucking.
You know what Dice used to do? Did you know this, Dustin? I think he would have Wheels Parisi with him. And they would go to a crowded deli in the morning where people get coffee and bagels and everything. And Wheels would bust open the door and he would introduce Dice. And it was called Kamikaze Comedy. And Dice would go up there and just start doing bits.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Can you imagine doing that? Like today, you'd probably get killed for doing something like that.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. Well, Borat is kind of that, it's a version of that. Yeah.
You like Borat, right?
Sure.
Yeah, me too.
For Andy Kaufman. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Kaufman. Yes. But let's get back to Van Halen 1. And so the first song, this is how the world is introduced to Van Halen. The first song is Running with the Devil. And it starts off with car horns. And Adam, you have the drop on that because I want people to hear what that sounded like. And then I just want to give you a little background about that. So, Adam, just give us a little bit of the opening of Running with the Devil. Okay, so you hear that beginning, and that was actually the band's. They're in their cars and they all hit their horns. That was Gene Simmons' idea to do that, and Ted Templeton, who produces the album, Templeman, slowed down the horn so it has that eerie type of sound, and then you have Michael coming in on the boom, 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 right? So that's the first track. And okay, the title is called Running with the Devil. For years, it's misinterpreted as having some type of satanic, underbelly meaning. It's not. It's really just about a young band going on tour. And I think the line that exemplifies that is, hey, I heard the simple life ain't so simple,
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of these bands, kind of got under the umbrella as the devil band and whatnot. There was so much of that going on in the 70s and the 80s too, even. And I remember as a kid, we had to burn our Kiss albums in a church parking lot. And people were just freaking out.
Where'd you live in that footloose town?
In Texas, pretty much. I mean, Texas was crazy, man. It's people just felt it was, Kiss was one of the big bands. It was Night in Satan's Service is what everybody said it stood for.
Right.
And they were the four horsemen and all this stuff. And they were just from Revelations and people just lost their minds. And people like Ozzy. I mean, it's come on, dude. It's theater is what it is. It's no different than Dracula or a movie. It's theatrics to kind of, make it this big show and get kids into it because kids want to go where the bad boys are. But yeah.
You know what people would say about you, Dustin? They would say, you get it. That's exactly fucking right. You get it. It was theater. It was like Alice Cooper. It was a character. It's not even his name. Right. That's exactly what it was. All right. So now we go into the second cut. I mean, as if Running with the Devil isn't a great enough song. Now the second cut off of Van Halen 1 is Eruption. It's very famous. But it starts with Eddie's guitar solo, but it doesn't actually start with a guitar solo. It starts with Alex and Michael. And Adam, we have the cut on that as well, right? In this song, this is where we're introduced to the very when you talked about influential and things that people have done, we're introduced to tapping, which is taking your finger and playing along the frets and the strings, not strumming, not picking, you're tapping. And this is where we're introduced to that. And the song segues into "You Really Got Me." I don't know. I think you got to be psychotic to not play in Eruption and only go right into "You Really Got Me," right? Like you have to play the introduction. You have to play
a cover.
Eruption.
That's a cover, correct?
It is. It's a Kinks really cover, which we'll get. That's the next track, which we'll talk about. But on this one, he is playing the guitar you were talking about, the Frankencaster, made from pieces of different guitars. Eruption started out as a warm-up. When Van Halen would go and play in the evening at the Whiskey in the different clubs, this is how Eddie would kind of like get ready.
Yeah, it sounds like a blues scale. Like he's just a really fast blues scale is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And, Ted Templeton heard it and said, man, you got to put this on the album. And they record it. And if you listen to past interviews, Eddie once sat in for a while with Letterman. And he talked about this. And he said that if you listen to it, he messed it up. No one else in the world would ever catch that he messed it up. But the perfectionist that he was, he said the recorded version wasn't the best version of that song. I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I want to also add is, with Van Halen, it's funny. It's like once you start to look at, like people that are successful, like, you take somebody like LeBron, who is built for basketball. I mean, he's just a specimen of a man. And if you've ever had a chance, look at the fingers on Eddie Van Halen. I mean, it's the longest fingers I've ever seen. And so there's something, it's like these ET fingers. And so a lot of times it's like he was just born to play guitar. Like he's built for it. He's got the skinny frame and then these long freaking fingers. So he can do these things that a lot of people can't do just because they.
That could be you.
Yeah. What?
That could be you. Look at your fingers.
I don't have those fingers. I don't have skinny fingers.
Have you ever tried playing guitar?
They're not long. Now, dude, his fingers are like twice as long as mine. They're like
these are sausages.
All right. Yeah, I got skinny fingers, but I can't. But I couldn't. But it's the long. Like he can wrap around, and that's the thing.
Right. You got to be able to wrap around.
Hendrix had those fingers too. Like there's just certain. I'm not saying it's like without the fingers they're nothing. I'm just saying it's like it's just interesting. This is I just like to throw in a few interesting.
No, it's completely true. I mean, I tried playing guitar. The best I can do was been a rhythm guitarist because I didn't have like the fingers, like you said.
I did that too. Like
I played the drums. I was a better drummer than I was a guitarist.
Yeah.
So now we get to the track 3, which is "You Really Got Me." It's a Kinks cover. It's the first single off the album, which really got the band a little upset. They wanted Jamie's Crying to be the first single, but Templeton thought this would be the better track. It would introduce him. It was short, and it was the right thing. It was what they used on that '78 tour. This was also the opening song that they did. So it was really.
Well, I want to go into that as well. One thing that I think Van Halen did as well. And that is more of a trend now, but is the way they kind of rearrange covers. And I felt like, a lot of bands, when they would do covers, it was kind of, they were doing the similar version of what the other band or artist had done. Whereas I feel like, when they were doing this, Van Halen, when they were doing several covers, Dancing in the Streets and, different ones, it's like, it's its own sound. And then there's just these beautiful, like, solos in them and like just rearranging them where they, just have a new life of their own. They don't sound like that cover doesn't sound anything like the Kinks and like it's just a whole totally different sound. So, that's one thing that's so cool about them. Now it's more trendy. Everybody, every band, has a cover at some point, but I feel like they were kind of, doing it a little different when they started doing it.
Well, if you would have fast forward 5 years and they put out Dive It Down, they put out Dive It Down, which is a lot of covers, was because the record company wanted them to put out an album real quick, and they wanted to do a cover of Dancing in the Street, but they didn't only want it to be that, so they wind up doing Oh Pretty Woman, the Roy Orbison tune.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
And they do kind of like what they do with this. They do an instrumental lead up, which was The Intruder, which is a great lead up as well. Yeah. Okay, so the fourth song on and these sides are pretty short. There's only 5 tracks on a side. Is Ain't Talking About Love, which is one of my favorite all-time songs.
That's a good song.
Interestingly, when Roth leaves the band, it's one of the very few songs that Sammy would do that was a Roth song. I had heard this for years also about the song that Eddie wrote it, and it was one of the last songs to be contributed to the album because he didn't think it was good enough. Think about that. He didn't think it was good enough for the band. This is, like I said earlier, this is a song that used overdubs. And one of the great things about the song is you really hear Michael and you mentioned Alex and Eddie. You start to hear the harmonies, which Van Halen doesn't get enough credit for, in my opinion. And it's those great, hey, 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 you know?
Of course, Sammy Hagar loved because it had the word love in it. I felt like that's every song.
Love walks in when it's love.
Song,
Can't stop loving you.
Every song he did was Van Halen. It was a song with love in it. So of course,
it figures a comedian like you would pick. Of course, I never even thought about that he had all these love titles. And
my God,
yeah. This song also never charted. It never charted. I think it's one of their all-time greatest hits. And then side one ends with I'm the One. And this is an Eddie song. This is like, Eddie like working up and down the frets, kind of like a boogie beat. And again, great harmonies.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like a doo-wop thing in there, kind of like there's some, that's
I'd say it's more like blues. And I think they are more of a blues band than people kind of give them credit for.
Well, Ice Cream Man, definitely blues. It sounds like
it is. That's really super bluesy. Absolutely. And that's on side 2, and which we're on right now. So first cut, side 2, was what they wanted to be the single, Jamie's Crying. And for the younger folk, because Dustin and I, we're old guys right now, okay? But for the younger people, this was what Wild Thing, Tone Loc, this is what was sampled. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But also another great chorus. And
I love how you said Tone Loc like that was going to be a young reference. There's nobody that knows that. That's just as old as anything else we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. It's like 89. Yeah, like the young kids today.
The Tone Loc. Yeah.
When they get their new CD.
Funky Cold Medina. Yeah, that song will go over really well right now. Bill Cosby's going to cover that one. Hey-o. Go ahead, sorry. You're doing serious reporting. All right,
Jamie Crying was a great song, man. And you hear it on a lot of different soundtracks. I love it. And then we go into the second song on side 2, which was the Atomic Punk, which is interesting that they use the word punk, because the record companies were trying they wanted to bill or promote Van Halen almost like a punk band, because punk was kind of big. If you look at what they originally wanted to do and some of the graphics, it almost resembles a little bit of the Clash's London Calling. And so they were kind of trying to group them in there. And Eddie once said, "We're not punk. We don't dress weird. We just play good music." Okay.
Yeah. So it's just kind of weird, but a different kind of weird. Not a punk weird.
Not punk weird. No, not a punk weird. So
that was the thing back in the, before this album came out, it was pretty much punk and disco. That's what was charting. That's what people were getting into. And it was kind of all that kind of, either anti-establishment or Studio 54. It was like, there really wasn't a lot of rock and roll happening. I felt, bands like Seeger and, things like that were, kind of the more rock and roll. But so I think that's what was so great about this album, because it kind of got people back into kind of blues and rock and a totally different sound, which was, was so refreshing about it.
Yeah, you just said something interesting too about the record companies at the time were looking to package disco and punk, and you're right about that. And I remember bands like The Cause and even Tom Petty were considered punk, or they were trying to be billed as punk. Now, looking back today, would you even consider The Cause punk?
There's something punk about them. It's more modern punk, closer to like Devo and like a weird kind of, modern punk, like a modern punk, but not like a Sex Pistols punk, a different kind
that's
of
punk.
Yeah, but like, modern punk, like, just kind of, I don't know, just a different type, more modern, more the Scooters, and, punk evolved a little bit. It wasn't all just people with no shirts on.
Stop. What's the Scooters?
You ever see that movie with Sting? He's like, he's driving like a Vespa. He's driving a Vespa, and it's like all this like punk modern music.
They could also have been delivering Chinese food for all we know.
Yeah, it was cool back then. The Vespas were pretty cool, bro.
I have one. I love that shit. I
nice.
do. And then track 3 is Feel You Tonight. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, again, this is the song where when you look down the road, future songs that it influences, I hear pieces, later on, I hear parts of songs like Unskitty Bop by Poison and Rats Lay It Down. I could hear Feel You Tonight in that. And you talked about Alex before. This was the song that always highlighted Alex's drum playing in their live sets. This is where they would break and give Alex his drum solo. Know what it is? It's the ultimate Saturday night song. You're hanging out, you're with your girl, you're getting in the car, you're having a good time. That is what
kind of car are you getting into?
GTO.
Nice.
If it was me, I had a Ford LTD. That was my first car. It was a fucking whale of a car.
It's a cop car.
Yeah, it's what I could afford, though, man. And the song was
Suzuki Samurai. That's how ridiculous I was.
Oh God,
it was like the first smart Jeep. I think it went about 40 miles an hour. It's horrible.
What are you showing off?
I'm not showing off.
I at that age, I wish I had a Suzuki Samurai.
Yeah, I guess I was pretty cool.
That is cool. And then the fourth song is my favorite song on the album. This is my favorite song on the album. And Adam, I hope you got this drop here. Okay, Little Dreamer is one. It's great. It's soulful. What's different about this is that it's mid tempo. It's a little dark, and what makes me love this song is everyone. Listen, Sammy is easily the better singer. I'll give him that. But Dave,
better singer than David?
Absolutely.
We'll debate that in a second.
Okay. But Dave's phrasing on this song, the way he sings this song. Adam, do you have the drop on that?
I do.
That's
there he is.
See, that is fucking beautiful. Like skies, just the way he phrases it and puts a little stank on certain words.
Well, that's the thing too with Van Halen. And I know this is, a lot of it is about, tribute to Eddie because he, passed. Rock in peace, Eddie Van Halen. But, this band wouldn't have worked without David Lee Roth. And it would be kind of like a Steve Vai situation where it'd be this like, amazing talent, but no sex appeal and, no pop, no rock kind of energy. And, and that's what, David Lee Roth brought to the band, without it, it's just talented dudes, but, much like Steve Vai, just be no girls at the concert. And so David Lee Roth added this sex appeal. And I prefer David Lee Roth's voice just because it's a little higher. I know, Sammy has a solid rock voice, but I personally, prefer David Lee Roth's voice with this music. And I feel like it just works a little better with those high note guitar riffs that Eddie's doing. It just somehow, it works better together. And I think, that's why it just never quite sounded like, the Van Halen when, he left, because I don't think anybody could have really done what David Lee Roth did with the explosion of the band. But I personally like his voice a little better. And to me, it's not
I think
about
that
who sounds better. I just personally enjoy it.
I think they're two different bands with Roth and Hagar. They're definitely more bluesy, more like hard rock with Ross. Also, when you hear this song, when you hear Little Dreamer, and I tell you, I never can get in. I love this song. It kind of sounds, and you could hear Roth Motown influence in it. You could hear like something like "Standing in the Shadow of Love," like a song like that. There's no keyboards, there's no brass in the song. You know what there is? Great harmony, great singing. I think this is the song that really highlights David Lee Roth. And the next song, another song that you said earlier that was bluesy that also highlights Roth is "Ice Cream Man," and it's everything you just got finished saying about bringing girls to the forefront. Yeah, this would be his dedication to the ladies. And that's how he starts the song off. Here's a dedication to the
But it was so fun. Like he was he was the guy that was like, I said, I put the seat back, like all that stuff was great.
I love that. Yeah,
all that
Panama
stuff was, it's just like it awakened kind of this teenage sexuality, and it was just really cool stuff.
Listen, you wanted to be David Lee Roth.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had the hair. Yeah,
he's so funny too. It's like, and he's like vaudeville, like such a great performer, and just doing the splits off the speakers, and and he got kind of Eddie a little more theatrical as well. I mean, because Eddie would if he had it his own way, he would just stand there and play, and they told him, no, you got to run around and you got to jump, and I think they kind of like forced Eddie to be a little more kind of energetic with the way he played. So David Lee Roth brought that out of him. So
I agree with that 100%. And I think Eddie needed, like you said, a guy like Roth to kind of get him out of his shell a little bit, like while on stage, and not just be so introverted.
Yeah,
which I think he was originally. Also on Ice Cream Man, Eddie stands out on this too, because again, he's playing a little of that, like that he gives it like a delta sound, that slide.
Of course, Eddie stands out. He stands out on every single track.
Yes, he is, and consistently until you know what? I was just going to shit on 1984, but I can't, because when you think about the licks in Panama.
That's a great song. God. That's one of my favorite songs. It holds up, especially on that album. That's I think the best song on the
100%. 100%. I think it could be my favorite song on it, and it wasn't at the beginning. But later on it does. So I thought this was a great one. This was also, Ice Cream Man was also one of the three songs that Gene Simmons heard early on that led to the demo. Gene wasn't thrilled with the song. It wasn't anything that if he was producing the album, he probably wouldn't have put it on the album. But Ted Templeman, who heard it, knew it would break up the album, and it does. It showed a lot of versatility in their first album. So I thought this was a great tune.
And that's what I think the album has. It has versatility,
Absolutely.
Just the fact that Eruption is just this solo, and then, you go into the song and the fade outs, and then the kind of the weird kind of combination of songs. Yeah, it's something you hadn't heard before. And I felt like, everybody was kind of just doing these perfect kind of records that, played into kind of what a pop album is or whatever. But yeah, they were kind of they were experimenting, they were doing some weird, different stuff.
Well, no one ever heard tapping before, which is sick. It's sick. And you think people, there's a song off of Fair Warning called Mean Streets. Do you know that song?
I'm not sure.
It's a great song. And it has this fantastic little opening where it is just Eddie like tapping. It almost sounds like a computer. And Nuno Betancourt, who was the guitarist for Extreme, was on one of these rock cruises. And one of the bands that goes on these rock cruises is a Van Halen cover band, and they're great. And Nuno wanted to go up and perform with them. And so he told them the songs that they wanted to do, and the band came back and said, we'd like you to kind of do Mean Street. And then Nuno's reaction was like, oh, shit. I can't do that opening, and when they performed it, they did it like right from the beginning of the song, but not the guitar intro, because it's so intricate and so hard to play.
Yeah, no, and one thing I also want to talk about, when it comes to bands, it's there's so many bands that I'm sure you like that are kind of underground that people haven't heard of, and not every band gets this kind of success. And I think the fact that Gene Simmons, like you said, was kind of involved, a man that is the master of, kind of marketing, the fact that he saw the talent in this band and whatever. But even if you take just, this is very important too, this
Yeah,
logo
oh,
changed
absolutely.
everything. And it was like
Absolutely.
every kid in America was drawing that
Good point.
BH on our, textbooks and on our, on our lockers. And it was like, and it's just a perfect logo, it looks great. It's got this, it's like a silver kind of eagle metal thing. It's just fantastic. And so,
It's cool. You're 100% right. That's a
and the
great
guitar
point.
as well. And the fact that, because Eddie did this, where he's just like, when he was building the thing, he was spray painting it, and he put tape on it, and he didn't even know how iconic, his guitar was going to look. And he was just kind of playing around like a mad artist, just kind of, just like spray painting with tape and just pulling it out. And then it just comes out and it's this cool freaking design. And so yeah, so all that plays into it, as well.
Everything about this is really cool. Yeah, the logo is so huge. Again, it's so identifiable, and it's something like we talk about the days of going to record stores. And sometimes you bought an album just based on what the album cover looked like, or the album art looks like. And, now, unfortunately.
How would you not buy this album? I mean, they used to make album covers. They used to make album covers that were just, the artwork was phenomenal. Yeah, you would buy it. You wouldn't even care what it sounded like. You're just like, that looks cool.
That's a great album, too. Talk about great debut albums. That's a good one, too.
And so, but that's the thing. It's like the artwork is important. Because here's the deal. It's like, there's a lot of bands now where they do the marketing and they do the art and they do the stuff, and then the band's not very talented. And one thing that I think is great about Van Halen, it's kind of like when you see a comic like Bill Burr, or you see, certain guys where it took them a long time to hit. And then when they actually got their exposure, they were ready. And that's the thing with Van Halen. It's like, it took them a while to get signed because nobody knew what to do with them. Like you said, they weren't like a clear cut kind of band. And so they paid their dues, man. They were playing, bar shows and backyard shows, and just really went out of their way to kind of like, and so it's great when you kind of, you get drawn into a band that has the talent because of the dues they paid and because they had time to work it out. So that's the thing. It really all just works with this album. You got the talent of years that they were playing. You got the chemistry of the band itself. You have the marketing. You have the people behind it who know music. Like, it really was a home run, this album.
100%. And you touched on something about paying their dues, and I was also doing the same thing you were doing, going down these wormholes. I was listening to a lot of interviews with Roths, and Roth was saying that they live the life of rock stars, right? But you don't always remember, or people don't, or seem to forget that they were on these buses. They traveled. They lived on the bus for over a year. Just going from town to town, playing like shitty places. Like we do sometimes when we play the back of a restaurant, or
dude, you had me in a gig one time. You had me in a gymnasium, and here's the thing: this is the worst gig ever. It was great, and I'm always grateful for gigs. It had nothing to do with it. It was not your fault at all. You booked me on this gig, and it was 3 or 4 of us, Gino Bisconte and stuff. And the funniest thing is like everybody went on before me, and then I had to follow a doo-wop band, and it was like the Staten Island, like it was the band of Staten Island. So they had like a following of old people who loved this like 50s, kind of band. And then I went up, and it was just like, I'm on the floor of a gymnasium working blue hairs in the corner. And it was so funny. And I love gigs like that because they just, there's the story that you have, but it was just so funny. But yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, people, I don't want my musician to get on American Idol after, just getting out of music school, and then they, get an album deal. Like I want a band to pay their dues because they'll just be that much better. And when they get it, they'll know what to do with it. And so
100%.
I love that about this band. They paid a lot of dues.
You're a big guy like that. You don't like things just being handed. You want things to be earned.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I want people to, people to get it a little easy sometimes. Or they think art is easy, and you got to really find yourself. And that's the thing. This band really found themselves, and that's what I like about Van Halen, and the fact that they took a lot of risks throughout the years, and even through the Sammy Hagar years, and
Absolutely.
they lose a lot of kind of traditional rock people because of those years.
Well,
And
1984, you
and
go to keyboards.
what I like about Eddie Van Halen in general is that well, first of all, he was a pianist first, and so the fact that he kind of wanted to incorporate that talent and see where it would go, it's just very interesting. I just like that they took risk and things like that. So even if you don't like the music, I like that they took the risk anyway.
Agreed. So to wrap up this album, the last song on the album is "On Fire," and "On Fire" it was a song that they used to open with before the record company got involved. And then later on, once they hit it, they did open with this song. It's the last song. I think this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but it was also never played again since 1984. The last time they had the original lineup, and then Roth left in early September. They never played it ever again. They never played it with Sammy.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that is Van Halen 1. That is my recommendation. That is the album I'd love to feature. I was very hurt. I was very saddened when when Eddie died. That was a big blow. That was a big one. It's like a part of your youth is taken away.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is sometimes people, kind of, give you shit when you kind of like reach out like on social media or whatnot and find a way to kind of like talk about artists when they die and how they affected you and stuff like, oh, you're making it about you. It's like, man, it's like these, parents kind of raise you, but most things that raise you when we were is TV, music, these are things that shaped us. And so, a band like Van Halen is such a big part of, our youth, guys like us. And so it's like, I could just tell you certain places in my life where a Van Halen song came on. I was at a skating rink, or I was on my first date, or I was, in a parking lot somewhere and somebody had a boom box, or I was, at somebody's house and like the video came on. And I remember when Jump came on, that video, we watched it over and over and over, and MTV played that thing like every day. And it was like, things like that where you're just like, it's just a part of your development, and you're just growing up and you're watching these things, and you just feel like the band, and you feel like these people. And Eddie Van Halen, that smile and that look, and that it's just, you feel like they're a piece of you and a part of your family. And so when we lose them, there'll never be another Eddie Van Halen on stage. You'll never see that again. And so it breaks your heart, because it's like guys like us are so connected to music. I know so many other people are as well, where it's like, you have these idols and these people that, you just adore. And it's like, the music's a big part of your life. And so it's definitely, it's a huge loss. You'll never see anybody like this again.
No,
one of a kind, one of a kind.
Absolutely. It just kind of feels like it's weird that it's final. There's no hope that they'll ever be back together in any form.
Death sucks. So enjoy it while you can, kids.
Do you remember how you felt? Because I was also a big Kennison fan as well.
Sure.
And do you remember when you found out that he died in that car accident? How like it just ripped you?
Yeah. What year was that? Was it like 80, 88 or something?
I thought it was early 90s.
Early 90s? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually on a Mormon mission at that time. And so I was into Kennison when I was a little bit in high school, and then I went and became a crazy Mormon, and then so I missed a lot of that stuff. But I remember I read about it. The Brother Sam was one of my favorite biographies about Kennison, and his brother talks about the whole thing. And I remember reading that and kind of feeling it, but I was kind of out of the country. I was living in a hut in Chile, which is weird, because we'll find it out during the show. And I'm very excited to do the show with you. Is I missed a lot of years of music. I missed like 2 solid years of American music, because I was in the middle of South America, and we weren't allowed to really listen to rock music or anything. And so, it was, classical and things like
Was
that. So
I was going to say, was it just rock music you can listen
just
to?
anything like that, pop music, just, it was just anything with lyrics. They want you to, just stay focused on being a missionary and all that stuff. So I missed a lot. I missed the grunge, the beginning of the grunge scene. I missed, some of that stuff. So, it'll be interesting when we talk more about this stuff. But yeah, but I missed a little bit of that. But Kinnison was definitely, a huge part of my, comedy kind of just schooling, I guess, if you will. I listened to Kinnison over and over. And when I first started comedy, it was like, he was like a rock singer, it was like he had a whole thing, and great guitarist, on top of it.
Right. But it's just like guys like who you just think like they're immortals. Like Eddie was immortal. I think Sam Kinison, you thought would go on forerever. Like, and it just so sudden. I didn't see it coming. I knew Eddie was sick, but I didn't know how sick. Well, Elvis too, yeah.
Elvis. I remember when Elvis died. I was like a little kid, just like freaking out. It was all over the news and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's like I knew Eddie was sick for years, but that was kind of people, said that he had cancer for a really long time. But
I didn't know that extent. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I remember hearing a lot about it. Actually, read a few things about it. But yeah, stay off those cigarettes, kids.
Yeah. So that puts a bow on Van Halen 1. Great album. I can't. If you're just discovering it, I hope this helps, and I hope people go give it a listen. I know that back catalog is going through the roof now, and it's something that everyone should definitely rediscover.
Yeah, and get it on vinyl. It's like vinyl is so cool. I love everything. Jeff and I were talking about what we loved about vinyl, and vinyls have inserts. Which it's just so cool to see the artwork, and this is the whole band, and you get to to see kind of the personalities in these photos. And yeah, so in vinyl, I'm really happy the vinyl's making a comeback. That people are, the younger kids are getting into, vinyl and kind of, getting record players and playing it like we listen to it. So it's really cool that it's like that's a trend that's happening. So definitely support the vinyl record business, support local record stores, because they're really hurting right now and they need people to come out. And so definitely, support it.
Okay, so
cool.
That's that.
All right,
and
Halen.
We have one more segment.
All right, we're doing new and vinyl. Is that what we're doing? I want you to lead on that one as well. You're a little more prepared than me.
Because we got a couple of new releases that and this is going to come out. So I'm looking down the road in 2 weeks. So right after the election, November 6th, New York starting to see is a lot of reissues starting to come out.
Yes.
Because I guess no one's recorded anything, or also, it's a kind of a rough time to buy anything. So you're starting to see, movies being held off. Although, interestingly enough, in 3 weeks from now, the AC/DC will be available. That's going to be
very excited. Very excited about it. Have you heard the single yet?
Power Up.
Have you heard the single yet? So good.
I haven't heard it yet. I heard it's great.
Oh, it's Shot in the Dark. Fantastic. It's on Spotify right now. So good. Shot in the Dark.
They ripped off Ozzy. That's an Ozzy tune.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Shot in the Dark. Yeah.
Shot in the Dark song?
Shot in the Dark. It's great.
Oh, that is Shot in the Dark. Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't rip off. It's like, you don't, who knew?
It's a rip.
Who knows?
It's a rip.
Who knows where Ozzy got it? Like, you know what I mean? When people say that, they're like, there's a couple of phrases I don't like. It's like, just make sure, like, because everybody gets influenced. I don't think AC/DC's out of all the bands. I don't think AC/DC's ripping anybody off, except
Sabbath is my second favorite band. So, okay, so here's what's coming out. You get a reissue of The Man Who Sold the World, but coming out under a different title called the Metrobolist. Elvis Costello is coming out with a bunch of stuff. The Complete Armed Forces. Now, if you remember Armed Forces, that's a great album. Harry Chapin, who we know hasn't produced any new music in quite a while. Also, reissuing stuff on DVD. So, I mean, Harry Chapin was one of the great folk singers, really. Linda Ronstadt, Get Closer, is being reissued on vinyl, which is interesting. Alice Cooper has a new album coming out. So keep eye out for that. And also, do you remember Rick Wakeman from Yes? He is coming out with a Christmas album, which should be interesting. So,
everybody does a Christmas album. It's so funny how people do Christmas album. There's some weird ones. There's some weird ones out there.
The world needed a Rick Wakeman Christmas album.
You know who did a Christmas album that was really weird is what's his name? You know all the names. Who's a guy from Bon Jovi, the guitarist?
Richie Sambora.
Yeah, he did a Christmas album, and it's just so weird. It's very good in musically, you know, because he's great, but it's just, I don't know, it just felt odd. You know, and you're just like, what are you doing? You don't need to do this. Like, just do a solo album. Just like do a Steve Vai thing and just play. Nobody needs Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by you. You know what I mean?
Did the world need to hear "Come All You Faithful" by Twisted Sister?
Twisted Sister. Oh, yeah, that was my band.
Yeah, listen, I used they're a Staten Island. Well,
you met them, right? Did you meet them?
In Staten Island. Yeah, in fact, I used to go see them every Tuesday night when I was a kid. They used to play over at the Rock Palace.
Nice.
And then when I owned the record store, I mean, I was young. I was maybe 20 years old, and I had Eddie and AJ Perro, who was from Staten Island, come in and do a record signing. And this was at the height of Stay Hungry. So, man, we had like mob, around the street. I mean, it was huge, covered by the papers and everything. And one of these days, Dustin, I got to show you this picture of me. Picture like a 20-year-old Jeff. I maybe have like a Ron Jeremy, like porno mustache going on. Okay. A open college shirt with a record on it. Like I really, it's such an embarrassing picture, but I got to share it with you.
I think you're getting close to that look again. I think we're getting close to that look. We're going back. I like that. I like that about you. There's some stuff that's released recently that you guys want to check out if you're into vinyl. It's all Sam Cooke stuff, which I'm a big fan of. Sam Cooke, one of the greatest voices of all time. Check that out. And The Who, The Kids Are All Right, which is a perfect rock album. Talk about punk and rock. I mean, that's such a great album. And all the U2 stuff, War, October, Unforgettable Fire, all that is being re-released as well. One good thing about re-released albums is they don't scratch. So it's nice to put on an album that's, scratch-free. Because a lot of times I'll buy albums.
Is it heavier?
Usually, yeah. Some of the new releases come on, it's thicker albums. Yeah, like a lot of the new stuff will be thicker. I'll show you next week, but like this is a re-release. This is the Miles Davis, and it's like, it's usually a thicker. They go for kind of a thicker quality of album, whatever. But so that's been fun, man. So this is our show. We're having a good time. We're put on a little Van Halen to close us out. But there's that car noise. It's so cool how things like that get make it on to records that are just kind of afterthoughts that, oh, I don't have it on phone. I'll see you guys.
It's a good thing you're not the tech guy. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks show, dude.
Crank that up.
I tried. We got to you don't want to get in trouble on YouTube.
No. 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Hi, everybody. Great show, dude. That was a lot of fun.
I'll see you guys next week.